Hi, I'm Krutika, and today's conversation is with Miraj. While he's only in his 20s, his story starts over a decade ago when he was 14. After sudden and severe migraines, as well as unexplained vomiting, a scan revealed something that no one could have expected: a brain tumour. Within days, he was having surgery, a surgery that could have gone either way. What he shares reflecting on that time, the diagnoses, the pain, the memories before surgery, and the clarity that came afterwards, it's all so raw and powerful and incredibly moving. Honestly, I found myself getting emotional just listening. But what really struck me is how he's carried that experience into his life today. The wisdom he brings, the peace he's found, and his approach to the world. It's something we could all learn from. Hi, Miraj. So great to have you on my podcast today. How are you?
Yeah, great to be here. Yeah, I'm all good, thanks. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad. It's been a really nice week of sunshine. Have you been able to enjoy the sunshine much this week?
Not really, to be fair. I've kind of been stuck at home. Got had some work to finish off, but no, I'm sure over the coming weeks I get out and do some more stuff.
I think when you're working the corporate grind and it's sunny outside, you can't really enjoy it much, can you? Because you're just stuck behind a screen. But like you say, hopefully more of that to come and we'll be able to enjoy it a little bit. Now, we'll get stuck straight into the conversation today, which is about your journey dealing with a brain tumor. So, could you just tell us when you first found out about your brain tumor? How old were you? Paint us a little picture about how it all unfolded.
So it all started when I was about 14. So I was in year 9. I was getting these sharp shooting headaches. They were like they wouldn't last long, but they were very quick and sharp. And then it got to a point where basically anytime I ate any food, I would just throw it all out or I'd puke it up. But growing up in the house that I did, my parents were always quite strict on me going to school. So it got to a point where I was missing a lot of days of school because I was just constantly complaining about this sharp shooting headache that I had and me constantly puking up. And they were like, "What's going on? You're missing too many days of school now. Like, surely you're not faking something else. Something's going on here." So I remember this one Saturday, once I missed like 3 or 4 days of school that week, my dad was like, "Okay, enough's enough. Like, we need to find out what's going on here." So he called the ambulance on the Saturday. Um, this was also, I think, the week before. I just also fainted in my bathroom as well.
Oh
So all
dear.
these factors of me just puking up, complaining about headaches, staying home from school, having fainted, he's like, okay, something's not right here. Um, so he called the ambulance on a Saturday. He called the ambulance and then they came over. I was just in bed. I was bedbound for practically that whole time. They came up to my room. They did some testing, and then they found I had 2 out of 4 symptoms for meningitis. Um, which is why they brought me into. They're like, okay, we can take you into the hospital. So they took me to hospital. Um, and I got into A&E at Norfolk Park around 6 o'clock in the evening. I didn't get seen or taken in until like 1 a.m. at night. So I was stuck in A&E for about 6 hours. And those
Oh
six, seven
gosh.
hours I was stuck in that room, me and my dad, the longest time ever. I remember it so well because I was so hungry. I hadn't eaten. I was so tired. I remember this other patient was sat there too eating chips, and I was like, it smelled like the best chips ever. I was so hungry. Yeah, I was just sat there, and then eventually I got taken in around 1 a.m. To have a scan because they obviously put me in for meningitis. They said, okay, let's see what's happening. At this point, they were very careful with what they told me, so I didn't know nothing. Um, they obviously told my parents that they found something in my head, but I didn't know anything at that stage. It was so late at night, it was like 1 o'clock in the morning. So they said you're gonna have to stay here and spend the night here. So I was like, cool. I was 14. I was an easygoing kid. I was like, cool. I just want to sleep anyway, so let me just sleep here. My dad went home, and later I'll come to find out that it was quite an emotional night because that's my dad already knew at that point that I had a brain tumor. So he told my mom, and I heard later on that my mom and dad obviously were in tears finding out this news. My sisters were upstairs in bed, and they just heard my dad coming home late at night, and like him and my mom in the living room just crying for ages, like practically the whole night. Remember, at this point, I'm at the hospital. I don't know what's going on. I'm just happy to be asleep. And then in the morning, before I wake up, my parents are already and they're like, okay, we should take you to Great Ormond Street. I didn't bother to ask why or what's going on. I just knew that I wasn't well because obviously I'll be having these headaches and um, puking all the time, low energy. I thought, okay, cool. I'm going to Great Ormond Street and they'll make me feel better. So first thing on the Sunday morning around 10 o'clock, they took me in an ambulance and we went to Great Ormond Street Hospital. My dad and mum were in the ambulance with me. Went to Great Ormond Street, got there, and then the whole Sunday, it was almost like a say goodbye day kind of thing. I had like my dad's two sisters come over, their kids. I had one of my mom's sisters and their kids come over, and yeah, everyone was just like spending time with me. And looking back on it now, it seems so funny because I never bothered to ask, why am I in hospital? Why are people coming to see me? Yeah, didn't know still what was happening, but I just knew I wasn't well and I had to do some kind of surgery. And then comes Monday, my dad spends the night with me on that Sunday night. Monday I wake up and I'm hungry, so the nurse gives me some Rice Krispies, munch that down. But then I come to find out that I probably shouldn't have that Rice Krispies because I had that I wasn't able to have the operation that day
Oh
for this
dear.
brain tumor. Um,
Also, you were
Again,
not meant to have been on eating any food ahead of the surgery.
yeah, I wasn't meant to be eating anything, so I couldn't have the operation that day either. Monday was another nothing day. Had scans, had people come see me. That Monday night, I remember because obviously my dad was staying with me just before the day I got my operation on Tuesday. I think I took time to really process how surreal this whole situation was and how people were coming to see me. And so I asked my dad, like, is this surgery gonna kill me? It just seems so strange that everyone's making a big fuss about me for no reason. I just thought because as a kid, when you're not well, you just think you go to the doctors, they do something, you feel better, and that's it. And that's how I was playing this whole scenario because no one was telling me what was going on. I didn't know I had a tumor at this point. Everyone knew but me. Then then comes Tuesday. So Tuesday's the day of the operation. Still at this point, I don't know I have a tumor. I just know there's something in my head and they've got to take it out. I don't know how serious it is. Tuesday, I remember really well. I remember being in the room before they were about to take me into the operation theater, and there was my dad, my mom, one of my dad's cousins, and my dad's sister, and they were all with me. The nurse gave my mom this pink shampoo, and my mom bathed me and washed my hair because this pink shampoo they gave me was some special like medicine shampoo. It's meant to make my hair soft so that when they operate on me, it's it's hygienic. But I remember that time being quite emotional. Like my mom was giving me like a shower and like washing my hair, which potentially could have been like the last time. And I remember my mom showing me a video, and I remember being there at the moment when she was taking that video. I was just sitting there waiting to be taken in to the operating theater, and she was recording me. I'm like, Mom, why are you recording me? Like, this is so strange. And she's like, oh, I just want to remember. I'm like, Mom, what's going on here?
I feel like I'm being reduced to tears just hearing you talk about what happened. I'm actually quite emotional. That's very hard for a parent to deal with, having her child something that can be quite life changing, and especially going into surgery, right? Not knowing what the outcome is going to be.
I had no idea what was going on. I didn't know the extent to how serious what I was going through was. So
Yeah.
I just played it very chilled. And I thought everyone was making a big deal for no reason. It's only later that I'd come to realize the doctor put my dad into a room and I told my dad the operation his son's gonna have is urgent and it's a 50-50% chance that he may live or not survive. But my dad said the reason why we never told you is because if you go into an operation like that mentally weak or unsure, the chances of you surviving are a lot less. So you not knowing kind of improve your chances of making it through because your body's like more geared towards, I guess, dealing with whatever comes its way. Looking back on it, I'm quite grateful that my dad did what he did. Anyway, if I if I knew the extent to how serious it was, like last moments, if they were my last moments, I would have been a lot more appreciative and been more understanding to like why everyone was acting the way they were. Watching that video back that my mom had on her phone, I'm not an emotional guy, but that makes me what's to say from what my mom was going through at that moment in time. When I was in that situation, I was just seeing it from my point of view, and I don't wish that on any parent or any anyone to have to go through that with their loved ones, because
Yeah.
it's harder for the people around you than it is for you yourself, I think.
Yeah, I think that's what's made me feel emotional because it was almost putting myself in your mum and dad's shoes, realizing that to have to see their son, go through something like this, it's obviously quite a life-changing thing. You mentioned these symptoms that you were having in the run up to what led to you being hospitalized and the surgery. How long was that period of symptoms that you were experiencing?
I think it was like over like a couple of months, but it gradually got worse and worse. I just remember having these sharp shooting headaches like every day, and they were becoming more and more frequent. But like no one seemed to believe that what I was saying was as bad as it was. Like I remember going to the GP a couple of times. They're like, "Oh, you've just got a migraine. Like take some tablets and you'll be fine." Like no one seemed to understand. Like even a few times, I remember I'd joke around with my family, and I'd say it like that hotly and saying like, "Guys, I think I got a tumor. This headache is killing me."
Wow.
And I remember my mum like, "Don't say that. Some people actually do have tumors. Like don't say that kind of stuff because it's so rare for some to have a tumor. No one kind of thinks that you have one until you go through the process of going through a scan and finding out it's actually there."
You've made sort of a joke that you thought it was a tumor, and sometimes what we feel instinctively as happening to our body, that ends up being what is actually happening. And sometimes we know better for ourselves. The sort of tumor and the stage that it got to, if, for example, hypothetically, it hadn't been caught at the time that it was, would it have been a completely different scenario? Could it have become something more serious?
To be honest, I don't know the full answer to that. I believe it would have made things worse for sure. So at the point where they found out that I had the tumor, at that point it was the size of a golf ball. I was told it was about 5 centimeters in diameter. It was quite thick. So when they found out on the Saturday night, they said that they had to like operate on me straight away. So they wanted to operate on me on the Monday. Obviously, I had the Rice Krispies, so they
So
operated on the
you could,
Tuesday.
yeah.
So as soon as they found out, they're basically like, "This is urgent. You need to have the operation as soon as possible." So going back to your question, I believe if it was longer, then it would have made things worse for sure.
Fair enough, and I appreciate the honesty. I mean, after the surgery and knowing that it was a brain tumor, how did you process it all and how did you cope emotionally as well?
So the operation was 8 hour, 8.5 hours in total. I woke up from the
Wow.
operation. It just felt like I woke up from like the deepest sleep ever. I was in so much pain. I remember going back to ICU, which is intensive care unit, and I was basically plugged to like machines that had morphine attached to me. And I had like doctors in suits come to see me. So these are like the consultants. And they were like, "Well done, son. Like the operation's been is good." But they kept throwing this term around called cancer. They're like, "Oh, you just want to double check you don't have the cancer hasn't spread." I was like, "Cancer? I didn't know about cancer. What do you mean cancer?" And then they took me to an MRI scan to see that the cancer hadn't spread, or if there was cancer that hadn't spread. So straight after my operation, I went into the MRI scan. And I don't know if you've ever been in an MRI scan, but it's very claustrophobic. It's just you and your thoughts. And that's the first moment I started to try to process everything that was going on, because I was in the MRI for about 40 minutes to 50 minutes. And I was left there with nothing but my thoughts, and all I could think about was cancer, surgery, like people seeing me. And at that point, it's crazy to say this, but I kind of thought this is my way out. Even though they told me about that my operation was successful, I thought this was like how I died, because it was at this moment where I really started to process everything. Because as a kid, you always think about, I mean, I don't know, maybe I'm a bit of a deep kid, but I'm like, okay, I know everyone dies. I don't, everyone dies in different ways. I thought this is my way out. I died because of something's wrong in my head and I might have cancer. I thought, okay, accepting the fact that now I'm gonna die, how will people remember me? And that's and at that moment I was going through every single person that I kind of cared about or that I was close to, one by one, and just thinking, will he or she remember me after I die and how will they remember me? That brought so much perspective into my life because when I kind of accepted the fact that this is how I was going to bow out, my achievements, my materialistic possessions, none of that mattered to me. The only thing that mattered to me was kind of what legacy I left after I will disappear from this world. So those relationships what was going on and on in my head.
To have to go through that at such a young age, and the fact that you had the wisdom enough to put things into perspective, that's really admirable. And I'm still feeling emotional with you just sort of talking about it, because death, we know, is a certainty for everyone. But to have to think about having only lived for 14 years and thinking, oh, is this how I go? And just to confirm, your tumour, what ended up being non-cancerous, right? So it was a benign tumour. And also to confirm, has it reappeared? Have you had to have any further surgeries?
Yeah, it was benign, so luckily it was non-cancerous, so it was all good. When they operated, it was so close to my brain that a small part of the tumor they couldn't remove, but that small part would die away itself because it's so small. So what I'd have to do is every 6 months, I'd have to go for a scan to monitor how that bit was going. So for about 5 years after my operation, every 6 months I'd go in for a scan, and let's just monitor this. I can say today that it's fully gone, all in the clear right now.
That's really, really great to hear that, it's something that hasn't reappeared and reoccurred for you. Just to circle back to the experience in your teenage years, now I understand that you have a scar at the back of your head. Do you think this experience has affected your confidence or your sense of identity? I mean, you kind of alluded to having a little bit of perspective when you were under the MRI scan and sort of thinking through your thoughts. It feels like, and you yourself said this, you're quite a deep individual. So maybe you're not like the typical teenager who may react to this sort of situation differently. But I still want to ask, has this experience affected your confidence and the way you see yourself?
I think to many people's surprises, it affected me in a very positive way. After I had the brain tumor, I had lots of time at home. I was homeschooled for a whole term of school. I was just stuck in bed. So I had a lot of time just to process everything that I had just gone through. It really made me realize what was important to me. And I keep going back to that moment in the MRI scan. Like that shit me, what was important was those relationships. And that's when I came to understand that at any moment your life can be taken away from you. A lot of things that perhaps I stressed about or worried about pre-brain tumor wasn't really a stress or a worry afterwards because I thought if this happens again, it's not going to matter because I'm not going to remember it. What I'm actually going to remember is the life I lived and the relationships I had with people. I became just so in peace with myself and in peace with life. I was just happy to kind of live life. People would say things or do things and it wouldn't really affect me. And it's so funny, like one of my best mates, one thing that he says about me is like, you live life almost as if like you're high on drugs. Like you're just so calm. You're so peaceful. Like I've never seen you angry or get like riled up. And I think the reason for that is because I'm just so like in peace with myself now. This might sound a bit crazy, but I feel like I'm ready to die again if I have to. I attribute a lot of my confidence to that situation that I went through.
Can I just say that is an incredible answer, Miraj, because I don't think many people would come out of this situation and approach life in the way that you have approached it. And I wish I had an ounce of the sort of calmness that you sort of have projected. It's just so wonderful to see. And you've referred to this importance of relationships, and that's come up through this conversation a bit. I just want to ask you, with everything that's happened, have your parents or your sisters approached you differently?
I remember soon after my operation, my sisters were basically like my maids because I was in bed. If I wanted water or pizza or anything from downstairs, they come and get it for me. But unfortunately, that weared off after a while. I think obviously there was a period of time where people were like, very grateful that I survived and were being, I guess, nice, not nice, but like appreciative for what I went through. But then obviously life goes on and it gets becomes more like reality after a while. But it's not to say that they forget that situation. But it's you kind of you go through these kind of things and life goes on.
Well, what's that quote? It's what doesn't break you makes you stronger, right? So it feels like this experience really hasn't broken you. It's made you so much more stronger. And you mentioned your best friend earlier in a conversation where you said, he thinks you're the most calmest person. When you're a teenager going through something like this, you think about your friends. They're probably dealing with their first crushes or not giving their homework in time. How was it sharing this experience with your close friends, and what was their reactions to it all, or did they have a reaction?
Yeah, sharing it with my friends just brought it out of that surrealism that I was going through in the hospital and with my family. Because with your mates, it's a bit more like lighthearted, like you tell them. But I guess maybe it's how perhaps me and my friends or how guys are, but we never really got too deep about it, especially not at that age because we're like 14, we're quite young. So I remember my friends come to see me a few times when I was at home, but we never really spoke about it in a way that I got emotional or anything like that. And I kind of appreciate that stuff I was processing within myself. And perhaps the kind of guy I am, like when things get too deep, I process it within myself and I don't like to speak about that out loud. I think my friends did a good job of just making it lighthearted.
And have you had therapy or counselling post this? Because I'm aware that when somebody goes through something as traumatic as this, they're usually offered, whether it's part of NHS or other services, to speak with a professional just to process it. Did you have any of those services offered to you?
I had it offered to me and I never took it. I've always just been, like I said, like I kind of like deal with stuff for myself. I never felt like I needed to have that therapy. I thought I could just like deal with it myself.
Do you journal, Miraj?
I don't journal, no. Yeah, maybe in the future is something I might look into doing.
So when you process things, are you in sort of a state of I don't want to, is meditation the right word to use? Like, where people, when they reflect, they just hear their thoughts out loud. Are you someone that can just sit and hear your thoughts out loud? Is that how you process?
Absolutely, yeah. Like I'm constantly in conversations with myself all the time. Even still today, it's just the way I'm wired. I'm constantly processing and thinking and reflecting on things. I wasn't before my brain tumor, but I feel like nowadays I'm also just so curious about everything. Still today, like 10 years on, in 2014, it's now 2025, so 11 years on, I still sometimes reflect on certain moments of it. A picture or video comes across in that time. I'll take a minute or two to look at that picture and really process it in, in detail, just in my own thoughts, and think about what was going through that person's head when I was in there. You don't wish a brain tumor upon anyone, but I feel so grateful and so fortunate to have gone through that, and I feel lucky that God kind of chose me to go through that experience. The fact that I had a brain tumor and made it through, the lessons that I've learned are so valuable. Money will never be able to buy the lessons that I have. I really hope I could like share how I feel based on what I went through with you and with everyone that I kind of care about because the lessons I went through are so grateful. So I'm always just reflecting on that. If I'm ever going through any hardship in life or going through anything I feel kind of nervous about, I always draw my mind back to that time and think, you know, in perspective, does it really matter?
Again, so very beautifully put, because there aren't many people that can pull that out of their toolkit. And like you say, it's sort of realizing, well, nothing is more precious than life. And so in moments of anxiety or overwhelm, you can reflect back and think, is this really something I should be getting nervous or anxious about? I've been through something a lot bigger. And when you mention lessons learned, have these lessons learned, are these the sorts of things that you've spoken to, let's say, your sisters about? Because your sisters are both younger than you, right? Or is this the first time you're opening up?
So I try to be that wise old brother to my sisters. I'm not always the best with opening up and try to wherever I can, like throw them little bits of wisdom from what I went through. Um, and even like with my friends as well, sometimes we'll just sit and have like deep convos, not like how we used to back in the day. Back in the day, our friendships were very light-hearted. But now that we're older, we sit and like talk about things, and I will try to share some of the things that I learned with them. And yeah, I think they find it useful, and I think it's kind of like almost like a duty of mine from God, what I went through to share those learnings with other people because it's not everyone kind of goes through this. I hope that I can do my best so that other people can kind of like benefit from some of the lessons I learned.
Have you been in touch with anybody that's gone through something similar to you? So, again, sometimes there are NHS services that allow you to connect, not necessarily with therapists and counsellors, but those that have been through, let's say, a benign brain tumour. Have you been able to connect with other individuals or forums?
I think there was definitely opportunities for that, but I never took it up, so I haven't, no. But just on that kind of topic is whenever obviously it feels funny, but it feels like nowadays you hear about so many people who go through cancer or go through tumors, not even feel close to them, but maybe a friend of a friend, or I hear stories like these, and whenever I hear stories like these, I can really empathize with what they're going through for their loved ones because I can draw back to my own memories, and I feel a lot of empathy for them. Um, so whenever someone else is going through it, I really try my best to, provide support or just be there because it's tough, and I mean, it is, I guess, tough for the person going through it, but I feel like it's tougher for the people, for the loved ones. So recently, someone that I know, his mom passed away due to cancer, and I can really feel what he went through.
What I'm hearing you say is that this experience has really opened up a whole new level of empathy. And I do find that individuals that experience something like this generally do have so much of a emotional understanding of other people. And that's so beautiful as well. Do you find that now, let's say somebody came to you with a particular struggle, you're able to offer that little bit more better advice because you channel like what's happened to you? Do you find yourself being that advisor?
I don't know. I feel like maybe sometimes people get sick of me saying the same thing, but I'm always like, no, just be grateful, just be appreciative. One of my go-to things is it is what it is. Like I don't know, maybe people look at me and like this guy just looks at life as if like nothing's a worry. But honestly, when you go through something like that, something that you think will never happen to me, and it does happen to you, you just come to realize that appreciate the small things in life.
Hmm.
Um, It's so easy to say and it's quite cliched, but when you go through it hits you differently.
If you could go back and speak to your younger self, I mean, you have already got a lot of wisdom and advice that you've shared through this conversation, but you mentioned you were pretty chilled. But if you could go back and whisper something to young Miraj at 14, what would you say?
Yeah, it's just the same thing. Just be grateful for the life that you have. Appreciate everyone. All these things are very cliched, and it's difficult. I feel like pre-brain tumor Mirage, I guess most people, when they hear about all these kind of stories, they never think it would happen to themselves until it actually does. So it's kind of having that like humility to think that you're not you're not invincible. Anything can happen to you at any moment. Just be grateful. I guess having that peace within yourself makes life so much better to live. So this quote once where it says, "The most peaceful people in the world are the most powerful people in the world because things don't rile them up as they would if they weren't." So yeah, I'll just be like, just take it easy, enjoy life, try to do as much as you can. Like, I'm not saying don't do anything, just chill life and sit back. Go out there, be ambitious, try things, do things, experience things, achieve, push yourself to the limit, but just like savor every moment, just be grateful. And at any moment along those journeys that you're on, if it ended at that moment, just be content with yourself. If it ended then that's enough.
What's the one like exhilarating, ambitious thing that you've done since your surgery? Is there something where you're like, oh, that was really stepping out my comfort zone, doing something that pre 14-year-old Miraj wouldn't think to do?
Good question. I wouldn't say there's like one particular moment, but it's more my approach to life. Like the job I'm at today, it's not an easy job, and a lot of people would struggle under that type of pressure and the kind of fast-paced nature of it. It's quite stressful. Nowadays, when like something difficult comes up in my life, I'm just like, bring it on. Let's just do it. Like it can't be harder than the idea of what my parents went through. So whatever opportunity comes my way that's exhilarating and difficult, I never really back down anymore.
You've mentioned your parents a couple of times. Do you always now share how you feel about your parents and the love and respect that you have with them? Or do you keep, I know you mentioned you're not a particularly emotional guy, but knowing what they've been through and what you've been through, does that now mean that you are a little bit more open with the respect and love that you feel for them?
To, but I'm still that same guy who keeps things to himself, and that's something that I want to improve on. I guess it's just the way that I'm wired. I hope they know deep down the love and respect that I have for them. I guess my actions, my emotion comes sometimes towards that, and they know it's there. But I probably should make it more blatant sometimes.
Sometimes actions speak louder than words. So if your actions marry up with the way that you feel, Miraj, I'm sure they're aware. And maybe they'll listen to this podcast and they'll know.
Yeah, exactly, exactly.
So my final question to all my guests is always, what journey are you on next?
My journey next is just going through life and living life in a way that I'm kind of content with. There's different moments and times where I'm going through different journeys, professionally or personally or relationships, and it's all the journeys I'm going through. It's just making sure I'm going through them in a way that it's true to myself and it's true to the people that I care about around me, and being a kind, generous person to everyone, being there for people. It's just the way I approach life now. It's different.
Thank you so much, Miraj, for sharing your journey. It's such an incredibly powerful one, and all the wisdom you've shared today.
Pleasure's all mine. Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Journeys with Krutika. If you enjoyed this episode, please rate and share. I'd love for you to hit the follow button wherever you get your podcast so you never miss an episode. And if you have a journey that you want to share, email me at journeyswithkrutika@gmail.com or reach out via my socials. I'm on Instagram and TikTok. Just search Journeys with Krutika because your journey is extraordinary.